All right. Today, as you know, we had left off at the middle of Isaiah 52 last time. Today we're going to pick up from there and continue on to Isaiah 53. Now, the section we're going to look at today has been named as the Holy of Holies of the Old Testament. So deep and holy, and it is a prophecy of what is to come. It is basically showing to the Old Testament believers who their Messiah is going to be, what he is going to have to go through, and what are the attributes he will have. I mean, when we go through the verses, you will see, other than using the name Jesus, everything else is just here so clearly. So if you ever want to see where Jesus is in the Old Testament, one of the places you can look at is Isaiah 53. The chapter, well, the context begins at Isaiah 52, verse 13. So I want to start there. Let's see, verse 13. Behold, my servant will act wisely. He shall be high and lifted up, and shall be exalted. Now, in this verse, God starts talking about his servant, his chosen one, the one that is going to come and save these people. The one that Moses had told them about, that somebody is going to come and you're going to follow him. God is going to send you somebody from your brethren. And the expected Messiah, the expected Savior. What is he going to be like? How are you going to know when this person arrives? The Old Testament is full of prophecies of all the things that the Messiah is going to do. A lot of prophecies that Jesus himself fulfilled, prophecies of where he's going to be born, under what conditions, from children being killed during his birth to where he's going to be born. And uh, I think the numbers, the prophecies that Jesus fulfilled, I believe the number is around 300. So we're only going to focus on Isaiah 53 today. But for a person who is objectively looking for who the Savior is, after reading Isaiah 53, it is impossible to come out of it and say that it can be anybody other than Jesus. Throughout history, there's been attempts to cover up Isaiah 53 or remove Isaiah 53 from the Old Testament canon. There was a time where Isaiah 53 was removed from certain scrolls and certain Old Testament books. But the Lord would not allow that to continue. What he did was, in 1947, there was a discovery in the Dead Sea Scrolls. I'm sure you've heard of it. And and right there in the midst of that finding was a fully intact scroll of Isaiah, and right there in the middle of it was Isaiah 53. So nobody could say that that was not there anymore. You see, we don't serve a powerless God. Our God is able. Our God is capable. And I grew up in a country that was Muslim, as you know, and some of you also were. And one of the points they try to make always is, well, Christianity is okay, but the Bible has been changed by people. That's why there was a need for another book. They're big with books. There has to be a need for another book to come. So that's why God, in their case, Allah, sent the Quran to Muhammad. That's their claim. So the whole basis of them having another faith, a belief system, is based on the fact that, or the point that they try to make, that the Bible has been changed. Well, this is just one small example of how it could not be changed. The Dead Sea Scrolls contained a lot of Old Testament books, and it was found in 1947, but it dates back to the first century. So during the first century, these books were there. And since first century, these books continue to say the same things. And my point to them always was, just like it happened in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and just like it happens almost every day, archaeologists find stuff, prove the validity of the scriptures all the time. Bible has never ever been proven wrong. Did you know that? It's never been proven wrong. It's been proven right every single time. There were times where they could not find the things that Bible was talking about, some such as people or places, but during the course of time, during archaeology, all of them came out. So Bible has never been proven wrong. So my argument to these people is always, if God is who he says he is, and he is, do you think he is not capable or powerless? That he's going to allow people to change his word? Just like we saw in the case of Isaiah 53, people tried taking it out. God didn't allow it. So, no, Bible has not been changed. We have thousands of manuscripts going all the way back, and every single one of them, with the exception of some dot here or a comma there, say the exact same thing. No, the Bible has not been changed. And I tell you, if God had allowed his word to be changed, he wouldn't be God. You see? So it's not an acceptable point that they make, but the enemy has to sneak in somehow. And what's his famous trick? What did he do in the garden? God surely did not say, create doubt, create question. Well, Bible has been changed. This can't be true. Create doubt. Let me give you a more updated version of what God really said. And don't forget another thing that was very strong in my faith in Christianity was the fact that when Jesus said, "You will know a tree by its fruit," look at the fruit of these supposedly from God's religions, and you be the judge. By their fruit, you will know them. So look at the fruit. You will know what's from God and what's not. So let's start. Behold, my servant will prosper. He will be high and lifted up and greatly exalted. The phrase high and lifted up, I will be lifted up. Does that sound familiar to you? Son of Man must be lifted up. Jesus said, when I am lifted up, I will draw all men to myself. Right away, the first verse, and there is a direct connection to Jesus. The picture of him being lifted up is parallel to the bronze servant in the Old Testament who was lifted up, and everybody that looked on it was saved. There was a time where God had punished the Israelites because of their disobedience and idolatry, and they were all getting sick and dying. And Moses prayed and intervened, and God told them, make a bronze serpent and put it on a stick and raise it up, lift it up. You see the symbolism? And God said, everyone who looks at that will be saved, will be healed. And Jesus, referring to that, said, Son of Man will be lifted up so that I can draw all men to myself. And Jesus was lifted up on the cross, just like that bronze serpent was lifted up on a piece of wood. Okay. Incidentally, that's where the symbol from doctors come from. As you know, the symbol for doctors is two serpents around a stick, right? It comes from there because healing came from people looking at that lifted up serpent. There's a lot more meaning we can go into, but we don't have time right now. So he will be lifted up and greatly exalted. Just as many were astonished at you, verse 14. His appearance was so marred beyond human semblance. His appearance was, excuse me, my phone is going off. I don't know why it's off. He was not recognizable. His appearance was so marred beyond human semblance, and his form beyond that of the children of mankind. His appearance was so marred that any man, and his form more than the sons of man, he was so beaten that he was not recognizable. The beating that they gave him on the cross, right before the cross, during the time between his arrest and his crucifixion, he went through hell. He was beaten in so many different ways. He was whipped with the cat of nine tails, they call it. It was a leather whip that had nine tails, as it were, and tips of every tail was either a metal hook or some kind of a sharp bone, so that they would whip him with that, and the whip uh, would just wrap around his body, and they would pull it, and as it's pulling, it would tear flesh. to a point where some of his ribs were exposed. So much of the flesh was torn because of that torture. He was beaten with sticks, he was punched, he was beaten by hands, he was kicked, and his face was unrecognizable. This verse is saying his face is not going to look like a human being anymore. Between the crown of thorns, the beating, who knows what happened to his face? Who knows if he had bones and broken, or who knows? We don't know. All we know is he was not recognizable. And one of the clues we have to that, as you know, Mary Magdalene was the first one to see the resurrected Jesus, and she didn't recognize him, right? Until he said, Mary. She thought he was the gardener. She could not recognize him. Another one is the two disciples that walked with him on the road to Emmaus. They could not recognize him. So he was beaten to a point where he was not recognizable. And here it is, 700 years before it is written. Now, let's keep reading. There's a lot more we can say about that. Thus he will sprinkle many nations. The kings will shut their mouths on the account of him. For what had not been told them, they will see. In other words, he shall sprinkle many nations. Kings shall shut their mouths because of him, because they will be astonished to see what was done to him. And they will start to understand what was happening. Let me read to you from a different translation. It might help you understand better. Let's see, verse 15. His form was so marred, he no longer looked human. So now he will startle many nations. Kings will be shocked by his exaltation. Because of him, kings will shut their mouths. They will be speechless, or they will witness something unannounced to them, and they will understand something they had not heard about. This was a shocking thing. As you remember, many of the people were expecting uh, a savior who was going to ride in with an army and take over and kick out the Roman Empire and establish his rule in Israel. They were expecting a savior of a kind of a king or a general. Those days are coming. But first he had to come and suffer. And that's the part they had problem with. They did not expect a savior who rode into Jerusalem on a donkey, lowly and humble. They expected a general with his army of thousands. Jesus is going to come back with the heavenly hosts and take over. That's going to happen after the 7 year tribulation ends. But before, he had to defeat death and sin. So, chapter 53 begins with, who has believed our message, and to whom has the arm of the Lord have been revealed? In other words, who would have believed what we just heard? And what was the Lord's power revealed through him? The same verse is used in the book of John. after Jesus had performed many miracles, showing the arm of the Lord, meaning the strength of the Lord, power of the Lord, proving God's power. Nobody believed their message. Not nobody. Very little people believed and followed him. They wanted him for the miracles. They wanted him for the food and the healing and the raising of the dead and the entertainment value and just trying to get something out of him. Yes, but they didn't believe. Many of them turned their back to him, as you know, when he was arrested. Even though he proved and showed the power of the Lord, who has believed our report, right? Who has believed our message? And then verse 2 says, "For he grew up before him like a tender shoot, like a root out of a parched ground. He has no stately form or majesty that we should look upon him, or appearance that we should be attracted to him." Like I said on Sunday too, this is as close to a physical description of Jesus that we are ever given in the scriptures. And that description is what? There was nothing special about him. He sprouted up like a twig before God in an unlikely place, like root out of a parched soil. He was out of place. He was born in the first century in a manger. Nothing special about him. There was no stately form. He wasn't this, uh, you know, central casting type of a superhero. No. When he was in the crowd, he didn't stick out. There was nothing special about him. And I like to repeat this every chance I get. People's understanding of Jesus, of, you know, pale, blondish, blue or green eyes is most likely not accurate. Number one, he was a carpenter. He worked with his hands. A carpenter, as when we say carpenter, don't think he only built like stuff out of wood and furniture and stuff. Carpenter back then built homes, built carriages, etc. Okay, so he was a guy that was working with his hands until he was 30 years old. Don't forget that. And most likely he had darker features. Most likely he did not have blonde hair and blue eyes. The idea we get of Jesus is because during the Renaissance, all the artists came from Europe, and in Europe, everybody envisions Jesus as their own kind. So these artists were surrounded by people with fair skin, blonde hair, blue eyes, and so they just depicted him as that. So if you go to Africa, you see Jesus as a very dark skin and curly hair. We don't know, okay? And what's more important is God doesn't want us to know. Because if he did, he would give us a detailed description of what Jesus was looking like. It doesn't matter what he did. What matters is who he was. There was nothing special about his appearance. He was despised and rejected by people, one who experienced pain and was acquainted with illness. He was despised and forsaken of men, man of sorrows and acquainted with grief, and like one from whom men hide their face, he was despised, and we did not esteem him. People hid their faces from him. He was despised, and we considered him insignificant. When he was arrested, everybody ran away, right? Even his disciples. People hid from him. Even Peter said, I don't know the man, get away from me. No, he was despised, considered insignificant. All these people that were yelling, Hosanna, save us, all of a sudden did not thought that he was not important. Nah, he's nobody, he was nobody. But how about all those times when you witnessed those miracles? How about all those teachings you heard and agreed with? What happened? Why is it that all of a sudden he's not significant? He's not important. This is a trap we all might fall into, guys. We might see the arm of the Lord in our lives at some point, and when life takes a turn that is unexpected, life takes a turn that's out of our expectation, our plans for ourselves. We might say, no, no, I was wrong. No, he doesn't know me. No, some people might even say, no, he's, God doesn't exist. Or no, Jesus wasn't who he said he was. It's easy for us to find fault with this first century people, but it also applies to us, doesn't it? When life develops in a way where we do not expect it, are we still going to trust him? Is he still going to be significant as the day when he performed a miracle in our lives? When we were so happy and thankful and filled with joy and thankfulness and gratitude to him. When things go unexpectedly, are we still going to consider him as that? Surely our grief he himself bore, and our sorrows he carried, yet we ourselves esteemed him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. Okay. Remember, I need to keep reminding you this. These words were written 700 years before Jesus was born. Okay. We are not reading an account after the fact. This is before Jesus was born. So I just need to keep bringing you back to that point. God is telling us, them and us, before it happened. Okay. And he's telling us, look, I told them before it happened. And we didn't esteem him. We didn't consider him significant. But it was he. He lifted up our illness. He carried our pain. Even though we thought he was being punished, attacked by God, and afflicted for something he had done. And that's what they did. That's what they said. When he was on the cross, what did they say? Well, let him get down from the cross now. He called himself the Son of God. Remember, they tried to kill him a few times. For what? Because he was calling God his Father. That was, as far as they're concerned, blasphemy. They're saying, hey, you blaspheme the name of God. This is how God will punish you. So They thought he was smitten by God and afflicted, but that wasn't what was happening. We know he was pierced through for our transgressions. He went through all that because of us. All the torture, all the pain, all the beating, because of us. Not because he blasphemed God, not because of anything he had done. He was sinless. That's a claim none of us can make. He was sinless. Yet he went through all that for us. He was pierced through for our transgressions. Again, another clue here. I mean, and every verse is so deep, actually. He was pierced through, literally. Remember? At the end, because the sun was coming down and they wanted the bodies to be taken down to make sure that he was dead, what they do? They pierced him through with a spear on his side. He was crushed for our iniquities. The chastening for our well-being fell on him. So the punishment that we deserved, he took. But because of that punishment, we were made well. Because of his wounds, we were healed. Because he was punished, we didn't have to. All of us, like sheep, have gone astray. Each of us had turned his own way. But the Lord has caused the iniquity of us all to fall on him. All of us had wandered off like sheep. We each decided on our own paths, decided on our own rights and wrongs, and we went our way. We are all sinners. But the Lord caused the sin of us to attack him. You know, I heard somebody say, I am not a sinner because I sinned. I sin because I'm a sinner. Do you understand the difference? By our nature, we are sinners. It's not like we made a mistake and because of that, I have to pay for it. Or I was perfectly fine, but I sinned, so because of that, I'm considered a sinner. No, no, no. I am a sinner. That's why I sinned. Just like a leopard cannot remove its spots, we are all born sinners. It comes from Adam and Eve. And because of that, we all deserve to be separated from the Lord in eternity. So therefore, the only way to save us was for him to take the punishment for our sin. Punishment had to come. God is a just God. He is not going to say the wages of sin is death, and because he loves us, he's going to say, no, 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 I didn't mean you. No, it's not going to happen. God is a perfectly loving, at the same time, perfectly just God. He cannot overlook it. He cannot pretend like it's not there. It is there and it needs to be dealt with. But the people that deserved it cannot pay for it without being eternally taken away from him. So, what does God do? Perfectly loving Father comes and takes the punishment that was due me and you. We deserved to be away from the Lord, but instead, he took that punishment. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. Like a lamb that is led to the slaughter, like a sheep that is silent before the shearers. So he did not open his mouth. You guys remember when he stood before his accusers, when he stood before, he spoke twice. Once in the Sanhedrin and once before Herod. Couple words. That's it. And once before, the first time he spoke was before Pilate. Just a few words. And other than that, he did not say anything. He did not answer their accusations. He did not argue. He did not plead his case. He stood silent. Even that is told us 750 years before. He did not open his mouth like a lamb that is led to the slaughter. He was being led to slaughter. They were going to kill him. He knew it. He didn't say a word. By oppression and judgment, he was taken away. And as for his generation, who considered that he was cut off out of the land of the living. Very clearly, it says over here, the Messiah is going to be killed through oppression and judgment. Very clear here. It should not have been a surprise to anybody that lived in the first century, mostly the religious leaders. They should have known. It's right here very clearly. For the transgressions of my people, to whom the stroke was due. He was cut off from the land of the living. Right? He was killed for the sins of others. He was assigned with wicked men. Remember? He was crucified in between two thieves, one on each side. Yet he was with a rich man in his death. And we know that Joseph of Arimathea asked for the body of Jesus from Pilate. The fact that he could ask from Pilate means that Joseph of Arimathea was a man of means and who had direct access to Pilate, which was not an ordinary thing. And he had this tomb that was hewn. It was brand new. It was majestic. It was beautiful. And Jesus's body was buried there. And even that, we're told that he was with a rich man in his death. Because he had done no violence, nor was there any deceit in his mouth. Nobody could say that Jesus lied or he had done anything wrong. Nobody ever accused him of that anyway. They couldn't have. But the Lord was pleased to crush him, putting him to grief. Why was God the Father pleased to crush him, his son? Well, it's because of you, because of me, because of his love for us. That's why. The love that he had for us. That's what propelled him to go through all this. If he had, if he would render himself as a guilt offering, he will see his offspring, and he will prolong his days, and the good pleasure of the Lord will prosper in his hand. Wait a minute. He was just killed. How is he going to prolong his days and see his offspring? Well, number one, who's the offspring? It's us, the believers that came after. And he will prolong his days. What does that mean? That means that death is not the end. He is going to rise from the dead. And he did. He prolonged his days. He's talking about resurrection. He was raised from the dead. As a result of anguish of his soul, he will see it and be satisfied. And his knowledge, the righteous one, my servant, will justify many, as he will bear their iniquities. It's just so clear. There is no reason why anybody in the Old Testament or anybody that today still believes only the Old Testament cannot see that this is Jesus. Therefore, God says, I will allot him a portion with the great, and he will divide the booty with the strong, because he poured out himself to death. And he was numbered with the transgressors, again, the two thieves that he was next to. Yet he himself bore the sins of many. Yeah, there were two thieves, transgressors next to him, but he himself was carrying other people's sins. These people were dying for their own sin, but Jesus was carrying other people's sins and interceded for the transgressors. And isn't that what he did? He prayed for them. Well, one of them was saved. He said, one of the thieves said, Lord, if when you come to your kingdom, remember me. And what did he say? Today you will be with me in paradise. Okay. And as he's being nailed to the cross, what did Jesus do? He interceded. He said, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. He was interceding for them, even the ones that were torturing him. Guys, I cannot, for the life of me, understand that kind of a love. I can't. And I also cannot understand anybody who can read these and look at the life of Jesus and not see that this Savior is Jesus only. Nobody else in the history of mankind ever fit this description, and 300 others. There is no question of who Jesus is. Having said that, there's a lot of people that come from a Jewish tradition, after being confronted with this chapter, does come to faith in Jesus. There is a lot of uh, what is called Messianic Jews, where they realize Jesus is the Messiah and they follow him. But the important thing for us is this: in light of all that Jesus has done for us, in light of all this pain we just read in this one chapter, right? Beaten beyond recognition, tortured, spit upon, the shame of being crucified naked on the cross, people spitting on you, putting a bag over your head and punching you, and beating you with whips where your flesh is being torn off, and nailing you to a cross. He's going through all this, and that's only the physical part. We didn't spend too much time on it, but the verse also said the anguish of his soul. Now, that's not only the physical, that's the soul. The payment of sin is death and separation from God. Jesus was separated from the Father. His soul was, for the first time ever in eternal history, separated from God. In other words, Jesus went through hell, but he could not, him being God, he could not stay in that state. And that pain of being separated from God is worse than the physical pain that we just read through, the pain of the soul. We talk about this often, but I'm going to remind you again, being separated from God is not like you're not seeing your friend for a few days or not being with somebody who you really like for a while. Being separated from God is being separated from everything good. Think about it. Being separated from hope, being separated from light, being separated from love, not having any joy or peace. Anything that's good, being separated from it. Think about it. Or you're in a state where you're constantly in fear. There is no resolution. There is no hope. There is no love. There is no joy. There is no light. It's constant pain, constant fear. I mean, it's hell. Okay. And hell is going to be forever. All these people that are rejecting the salvation that Jesus is freely offering, unfortunately, are going to live in that separated state because every soul will live forever, whether with God or without God. So, well, let's stop here. And then if you have any questions, let's talk.